I never thought that was going to be where I would be, what I would be doing or where I'd end. You know, my goal was to make pretty plates, charge people a lot of money, and enjoy my life. But all of a sudden, it's about, you know, the people behind the food, the seed that grows. It opens my eyes up to a lot more, and all that's happened through the various mentors that I've had in my career.
Well, it comes with being excellent at something. And you're not saying it, I'm saying it. So you can just receive it. Yeah, you just, I know that you're not going to compliment yourself in that way. But what I notice is like when you...
The roses are falling. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
When you commit yourself to being excellent at something, a whole bunch of other stuff happens.
Right.
But if you set out to get that other stuff, you're never going to get it. Welcome to the Spark Ideas Podcast. I'm John Yerian, your guide in this journey to sparking something new in your career or your life. This is a show about starting things, about empowering people to connect with others, and about making a difference in the world through collective action. In each episode, I have the privilege of discussing foundational ideas of life and work with some of the most insightful leaders across a range of industries. From technology to hospitality, from journalism to sports. You'll be inspired by how they bring these ideas to life, to help you apply them in your own work and life, and to spark your own journey. Jerome Grant is a celebrated chef with multiple James Beard Award nominations. He is currently executive chef of Dacha Restaurant Group in Washington, D.C., overseeing 2 beer gardens and the restaurant Jackie, located next to the Washington Nationals baseball stadium. Chef Jerome was executive chef of the critically acclaimed Mitsitam Cafe at the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian, and then developed and opened the award-winning Sweet Home Café at the Museum of African American History and Culture. This earned him national acclaim, including guest appearances on ABC's The Chew and NBC's The Today Show. He is an active mentor of high school and culinary students, both in his restaurants and through programs across the country, which we talk about on our show today. Jerome Grant, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to be with you. And like always, we're going to talk about something everybody already knows, right? Like a word, an idea that we're all pretty familiar with. But what we want to discover is your relationship to it and maybe learn a new definition or a deeper definition. And so we're here today to talk about mentorship. And so everybody listening knows what that is or thinks they know. I guess where I'd want to start with you is whether or not that's something that you have a personal experience with for yourself. Has anybody mentored you, and what did that mean to your definition of the word?
Man, mentorship was and still is a very, very big part of my career. I've been lucky to kind of go through my career and gain even more mentors, you know, to help seek answers that I don't know, to help learn new methods and things like that. And mentorship for me started at a very, very early age. You know, at the time when I was in high school, it wasn't really heard that somebody would want to go and cook food for a living.
Sure.
It wasn't one of those types of things that I actually went to that high school for. You know, I went to a magnet school here in PG County, and I was there for the science technology program. Really enjoyed science, really enjoyed math, but didn't enjoy the fact that I'm gonna have to go to school and do all this stuff. At the time, my mother, you know, who's always been in the food business, would stop giving me allowance. So when I was 14 in the 9th grade, I'd get off the school bus, go to the restaurant she was working at, which was a bar and grill, wash dishes, and begin to learn how to be like a short order cook, which is like, I think, one of the most superior arts of cooking. So I started getting my butt kicked at an early age, just essentially washing dishes, making salads, making pizzas, and loved it. I enjoyed working with the older guys. I enjoyed the stories. I enjoyed the different type of folks that worked in the kitchen. I enjoyed that madness. And I say it in a good way. You know, there was a lot of noise, and I was able to be selective of the things that I wanted to hear, or just hear it all and learn from it later. So, you know, I started enjoying cooking, and then I had a teacher, Mrs. Lee, who's very, very, very dear to me and very dear to a lot of my successes now. You know, my family was really great with me, but, you know, she's one of the first ones that helped me kind of pull all this together. And she mentored me at an early age throughout high school, and helped me figure out, you know, food. Was this what I wanted to do? How would I get here? What do I have to do to get there? It wasn't one of those things where I could pull out a computer and there
Yeah.
were search engines, and I could be like, oh man, chefs or black chefs, right?
Oh yeah, no.
There was none of that. I mean, heck, I could guarantee if I even was able to do that, there might be two that might pop up.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves a little bit, but yeah, I remember that vividly.
And that's no way, a reflection of how old I am. I'm still a pretty young guy.
We're in our prime.
But yeah. But Back in those days, they didn't have the Googles. That's what the old people say. They didn't have the Googles.
It wasn't that easy.
And she put that first cookbook in my hand, and it had this guy on the cover named Joe Randall, the godfather of Southern cuisine. He came up in the military, worked and ran a lot of restaurants, and it was co-written by Tony Tipton Martin, a powerful Black food historian, amazing cookbook writer, just an overall great food historian. And that was the first book that I ever got. And it had those two faces in it. It had two Black faces, one a male, one a female, and it was a book. It was a book with all these recipes, and it was like, well, there's some realness to what I want to do.
There could be a way to do it.
I wasn't kind of trying to dodge out through just, I didn't want to go to school. I just wanted to cook.
Well, let's hold up there for 1 second, because there's already a lot to unpack. And the first thing I want to point out, and this is true for my story as well, because I have a personal experience, several experiences of mentorship, but they occurred at times when I was, doing something and needing something. It's at a time, so you mentioned your allowance stopped.
Yep.
And it sounds like there was some decision that you were at an age to start to do for yourself or contribute in a way to earn. And so that has you in a space with these guys who are maybe mentors, kind of peers, they're older, but you have to show up for them.
Yep.
Right? You have to earn your way in. And to me, that's a really clear distinguishing characteristic of mentorship, is it occurs at a time when the mentee has real things going on in their life, something they're trying to create, and they're not being protected from all the consequences of it. Is that true to your experience? Is that the way you see it?
Yeah. I mean, it was a job. I treated it as a job. At the same time, it was, I wanted to learn so much, about, how to cook a burger, how to make a pizza. And I learned it from these folks that were running the kitchen. So at that time, it was the folks that I looked up to, was like, all right, well, I enjoy doing this. I want to be really, really good at this. Yeah. And that's where, it began. It started off with, my teacher, Miss Lee, and then the folks that I started working, in a kitchen with.
Yeah, and for me, the most powerful mentorship I've received occurred in a context where there were like consequences. Like I could have gotten fired.
Oh yeah.
Like it was a relationship that had conditions to it that I had to show up for. And you can really see the affection the way you talk about Miss Lee. But what I wonder is like, what responsibility did that bring to you? Like how did you think about how you needed to be in order to earn or deserve what she could see for you or what she was offering you?
Well, that's one of the things where it's like, you don't want to let folks down. Folk have gone out of their way to kind of help you along the way, along the path. That's that additional support, but also that additional pressure to succeed or to perform as best as possible. And that was one of those types of things where it was just like, for somebody to understand something that I really enjoyed at an early age and to help get me on the right path to go and do that, I think is very amazing. It's one of those types of things that we don't give a lot of educators, the true hand clap for, because it's like they could be anywhere in the world doing whatever they, it's a job. At the end of the day, they get a paycheck, they show up, it's a job. But the ones that go above and beyond, it's more than a job, it's the impact, right? Yeah. So to mentor me and help create that impact in my life, I thought was like a very pivotal point to where it all got real, really fast. Yeah. Now, again, I'm working with folks that are getting paid. This is their job. I can't, screw up their shift. I can't let them down. I need to be as fast as them. I need to learn these things. Also, I have all these folks, including my parents, that believe in this crazy thing that I want to do. At the time, I could have went to a good college. I could have joined the military. Yeah. I could have did all these other cool things that were super, well, not even super, but that were accessible. Sure. But safer. And safer and less stressful.
More predictable.
Yeah, but I wanted to learn how to flip the best burgers for $7.50 an hour. And that's what I followed. And they all believed in that dream.
Have you ever heard a voice in your head telling you to ask for a raise, start a business, or switch careers? Maybe you should. This episode is brought to you by the new book, Spark, 24 Concepts to Ignite, Unstick, or Supercharge Your Work Life. Learn more at sparkbook.com.
What I'm curious about right now is you're holding this cookbook. So there's this representation piece and you can see a path for yourself. But it was created by this other person that saw an opportunity in you.
Yes.
She handed you the book. So if we could go back in time and talk to him, how old were you at that time?
I was 15?
Okay, you're 15, you're holding the book. How would that 15-year-old explain why she was helping you in that way? Like, why did you think she was involved in your life at that time?
I think at that time, and especially in that age, young adults go through that thing, right? We're all trying to figure out where we're going, what college we're going to, what school we're going to, are we going to college? You know, there's all that, you really start to begin to think what your afterlife is after graduation. And those pressures start to kick in, right? At that time, all my friends had passed. I'm going to Temple, I'm going to Towson, Maryland, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing now, but I know I enjoy doing this. And I also know my parents said I need to do this, this, or this.
Right.
So what I wanted to do was none of what my parents wanted me to do at that time, or what was always preached to me growing up. You know, my parents always at least gave me those goals of like, it's either you're going to school, join the military, or you're going to go out and get a real job, whatever that real job is. But you're going to need to go get a real job.
I felt like there was a slight edit in there, like a real bleeping job.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a little.
You know, it wasn't, you're going to, you know. And like I said, my mother, she came to this country and worked in hospitality. You know, my grandparents started off in hospitality. So hospitality was always like in our blood. And like I said, I picked up cooking at an early age and enjoyed it. And my parents, you know, accepted and believed in it. You know, they took the chance. They sent me to school for it. You know, they've always been my biggest supporters. And, you know, it was always like a great driving force for me. And I was lucky enough to have all these additional folks, you know, in that path to help me along the way.
Well, it only comes later, you know, for me and having the opportunity to mentor others to understand the satisfaction that comes from it, which is not like transactional. Like you don't give it to get anything. And that part is hard to see when you're 15 holding this book and this person's just helping you. But as you go on and like live with that inside yourself, you start to see that or the possibility for it in others. You see yourself in young people.
Exactly.
And, you know, I have folks who I can see now mentored me who at the time occurred for me as just being hard on me. Like that's how it felt at the time. Looking back, I realized it was a gift. Coming up, and you can probably relate to this, and you're looking for success, it seems like success is like this scarce object. Like there's not very much of it, and I got to find mine. And if you take some of it, there might be less for me. Right. And then as you learn and grow, what you realize is like there's no limit on success.
No, not
like
at all.
your success doesn't diminish my success, so that makes it really a lot easier to be generous, because then what you finally come to is like the more I help other people be successful, the greater success I will achieve. The more begets more for not only is it not scarce, it's everywhere. But it's about, you know, learning that and not being greedy about getting your part of it. Right. And it takes a minute to get there. I didn't quite have that at 15 or 18 or 22.
No. I mean, I'm still searching that now. I mean, at the end of the day, there's still more things that need to be put out in the universe. There's still more folks looking for guidance. There's still more guidance that you're looking for, you know, for yourself. You know, I'm at a moment right now where I'm going to open up my first like true standalone restaurant, me and my wife.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
What could go wrong? It'd be fine.
Yeah, it's just going to be super successful. We'll make millions of dollars, and you know, we're starting to go through this thing where it's like we have additional questions that have been outside of, you know, what I've kind of been dealing with in the past 10, 20 years of my career. It's like, all right, cool. Oh, I got to pay these taxes on this, that. Like now I need folks and people that have been in my network to help mentor me to get me through these dealings and these understandings. And, you know, I have a lot of great mentors. I have a lot of great folks that I could call on. And I'm lucky to have that circle around me.
Yeah.
But also I feel that in order for me to have gotten that circle is, I've been able to do that same thing with other folks.
Yeah. And doing it successfully, like we talked about earlier, I think, really committing yourself to mentorship means holding somebody to a standard.
Right.
You want to set them up for success, right? You want to see them get through it, but it's calling them into a different level of performance than maybe they understand or could see for themselves. Can you think of an example, and you take the names out of it, but just give us an example of what that looks like in a kitchen or inside an F&B environment where you see potential in somebody, but in order to access it, you have to challenge them to something that is more than they think they can do. I mean, have you been in that spot?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the spot, and I've put other folks on that spot. One of the big things in working in restaurants is, how much can a person take on? There's never enough time in the day to do things. There's never enough hats that walk around to handle things. So, day to day, not only are we trying to run a business, not only are we trying to make it, as financially, running as possible or financially profitable as possible, but we also need to figure out how to actually make all that work. And a lot of times while you're doing that, something else doesn't work and there's something else that goes wrong and you're trying to multitask many things. One of those things is trying to figure out things before they happen, how to see the future, how to plan properly, and kind of bringing somebody along. I've had cooks that are the potential to be lead cooks, the potential to be sous chefs. And they could do a lot of things great, but how can I kind of get them out of their comfort zone with additional tasks and additional things that I feel that they'll excel in? It's like put one tough task on one person, but also add a task that that they'll execute, within seconds type of thing. You have the first win, but then all of a sudden you have that little bit of a harder push, but it's something that's going to condition you. Yeah. And, after a while, it's just like the fires aren't fires anymore. It's normal business. It's daily activity. You see it before it happens, but you also know in your mind that, you've kind of went through all these little things and have also put those people in those positions to kind of do that. So it's kind of just that whole thing of always evaluating the folks that work with you. I think that's the most important part because everybody just wants opportunity. And in a lot of the environments I worked in the kitchen, it's always the additional responsibility is what that opportunity is.
Well, but that's that. And if you're listening and trying to see how this applies to your career, which is maybe like way outside of a kitchen, what we're talking about is like, if you get really good at something and commit yourself to success, you're going to progress in a way that will eventually have you managing people, an organization. It's going to start out over a stove. But if you want to make a big dent, it's going to have to grow into something you referenced earlier, which is figuring out like complex tax issues related to opening a brick and mortar restaurant. It's going to come up. It's going to show up. Everyone ends up in the people business if they're trying to do something big. And it's not for everybody. And if you want to stay on the line and prep vegetables, that's awesome. Right. If that's your path. If your vision for yourself is to have a restaurant, it's like, you're going to have to look at this stuff. You're going to have to think about mentorship.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many more questions. And even as the industry evolves, it's like, I mean, we just went through a pandemic and a lot of us we wouldn't have survived without each other. Point blank. That was me calling another chef friend like, dude, what are you doing right now? You're not open on the inside. Like what are you doing? Well, this is what we're doing. We're starting to do, take home experiences, full meals, affordable full meals and blah, blah, blah. And we're blasting it on this site and da. And it was like, all right, cool. That's a great idea. And it's like, being able to get additional information, being able to get, it's a big thing. It's a real thing. And it always happens in not just, in the planning, but in real time, you know what I mean? Like as things happen. And that's, I think that's the additional key to mentorship is being able to have that person that you could call. And
it was so obvious during the pandemic. I'm fortunate to have a lot of close connections in F&B whose lives just like their careers just stopped in a lot of ways, but leaned on each other. A lot of like highly accelerated and concentrated mentorship took place. Meanwhile, we all just went home, right? I'm at home cooking and not doing a very good job. So I have this long experience that has me like so excited to be back in a space with people who love to cook and know how to do what you do. But it's been interesting to be back in these restaurants, back in these spaces, but see a little bit of a difference in the culture, a little bit of a difference. There's some scar tissue, but also there's some connection there.
Right.
Because I think I think there was maybe 10, 15 years of mentorship squeezed into about 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that's been a part of the silver lining with this whole thing, that we, fortunately had to take a stop and look and evaluate how we operate as an industry, how we operate as restaurants, how we operate as chefs, cooks. Like, we really had to stop and we had to stop and look at it and take a real observation, and have conversations and have difficult conversations, and still continue to have those same conversations to this day about a lot of things related with us in this industry. And again, it's just going through and making sure that additional support's there. Throughout this pandemic, I've had one mentor that's near and dear to me, that's always picked up the phone, Marcus Samuelson. And I mean, like, he stopped me literally from making a bad deal like 4 months ago. I was all gung ho about it. My wife was like, "No, we're not doing it." I was like, "Oh yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing it."
And then all of a sudden, Marcus gives me a call. I was like, "No, this is not what you're doing. This is why. You have to look at things in a different way. You have to look at things for, what you're worth and what you're looking for your family." And it's one of those types of things where it's just like, you have those additional conversation, you have those additional people to reach out.
There's a lot of mentorship out there for everybody. And there are people who haven't had the experiences we've had, or who are listening to this conversation and maybe not relating to all of it. And for me, it kind of comes back to committing yourself to something or wanting something bad enough to break down that insecurity and that desire to look like you know what you're doing, and sit with somebody and really just receive their advice. Actually receive it.
You have to be mentorable, if that's a word. You have to be open, you have to be honest. And that's a good part of mentorship.
I think a lot of it starts with wanting something and being willing to be different. Your story started with not doing what some of your peers and friends were doing, which is probably fine for them, not to say that was wrong, but it wasn't a fit for you. And seeing an opportunity for yourself that was a little less obvious or maybe conventional. And then you access all these relationships and mentorships that come as a consequence of that commitment. And there are people who, for whatever reason, didn't make that same choice. They did something a little bit safer. They haven't had the same experience of mentorship. And, where they end up a lot of times is saying, "Oh, well, Jerome's got this passion for cooking and I don't know what that is. I don't have that." And it's like, well, you probably do. You just got to look for it, or start to think about what it would mean to just go for it and get past the fears holding you back.
Right.
It's very rare for me to meet somebody that doesn't have any desires or passions. What's exciting is to be with somebody like you who, at an early age, felt that strongly enough to live into it and then access the mentorship you've been talking about, which is so incredible. It's such a gift in so many areas of your life, but it wouldn't have happened if you were more committed to looking like you know what you're doing,
right,
or doing the right thing. Right. What was that experience like for you, or how would you advise somebody who's hearing your story and thinking, well, he's just different than me. He's just more brave than I am, and I can't relate to that.
I've had these mentors along the way, and the additional mentors that I have, continuing, have changed. They're from different backgrounds. They're from, they do different things. My career path has also changed, you know what I mean? But with all that change, both of those changes directed each other. You know what I mean? It helped me get to a different state of where I'm at now, as far as how I approach food, or how I approach, opening up a business, or what are my, what is my voice also? You know what I mean? At one point, cooking, I never thought that I'd have this kind of platform that I have now, as a voice. I've been doing the culinary diplomacy project for many years, and to go out and travel and talk about American food, but also talk about my heritage, how I've grown in my career path, and do that with folks that, we'd never have this conversation. To be out in these different parts of the world, it's just one of those types of things where it's I never thought that was going to be where I would be, what I would be doing, or where I'd end. My goal was to make pretty plates, charge people a lot of money, and enjoy my life. But all of a sudden, it's about, the people behind the food, the seed that grows. It opens my eyes up to a lot more. And all that's happened through the various mentors that I've had in my career.
Well, it comes with being excellent at something. And you're not saying that, I'm saying it. So you can just receive it. Yeah, you just, I know that you're not going to compliment yourself in that way. But what I notice is when you...
The roses are falling. I really appreciate it.
When you commit yourself to being excellent at something, a whole bunch of other stuff happens.
Right.
But if you set out to get that other stuff, you're never going to get it because you're never going to be a very good chef.
And
the food's never going to be very good.
No, and that's the amazing thing about it, right? I've never really woke up saying, I want a Michelin star. I never woke up saying I want a James Beard Award. I never woke up saying, my goal in life is to be on the cover of the New York Times in a white chef jacket with an apron on.
Yeah.
That never was it. My goal was to do something that I enjoyed doing, being comfortable in doing it and making, my parents happy.
Well, let's do one thing before we go here, because you've been really generous with your time, and let's talk a little bit more specifically about a definition of mentorship for someone who's listening who either wants to access it or wants to be better about offering it, because you've had a deep lived experience of it. And I know it's something that you have to see in your life, and it's a little bit difficult to just write it down. But let's kind of improv here for a second. Like, how would you explain that to somebody who wanted to do a better job of serving the people around them and growing a team the way you have and having this incredible network of connections and mentees? What would you tell them it means to be a mentor, or how to be better at mentorship?
To be able to put the additional support out that is needed to help guide, others into being the best that they can be, no matter what. Mentorship's just not about climbing a corporate ladder. Mentorship's not just about, being a better husband. Mentorship's just not about being, a better hairdresser. Mentorship could be about a lot more other things, but ultimately it's to help you become successful within yourself, I think. Like the things that I seek successful, or the things that I want to be successful for, I seek out those types of folks that'll help me, get there. So I think it's just, the investment into making somebody a better person. And achieving, their set goals, or achieving the things that they want to be, just being that additional guide.
Yeah, and having the will to be open to the possibility of somebody being better than you.
Oh, exactly.
Which is the wild part, is when you work with people and commit yourself to people, you'll notice talents you don't have. Yeah. And it lights some part of you up a little bit.
Right. And that's a part of
but you got to get past it. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is a part of being a chef. I mean, the whole thing is to put out the best thing possible and to do it in the best possible way. Yeah. You put out good, you hope to get good back, whether it's taking the time out to train a young cook, or, taking the time out to inspire a young want to be chef, one of those types of folks. It's like, it's amazing. And even in my life, I've been able to be on that end, on large scales, with the National Restaurant Association, with CCAP, and all those big places that help promote our kids and help them get into this industry. And to see a lot of the fire that a lot of these kids have right now of wanting to get into this industry is amazing, and it's additionally motivating to my career, because like, how can I help them along the way, or how can I create the places for them to thrive? Yeah. I wouldn't have got here if it wasn't for those folks in my past that have knocked down those doors and created the space for me to thrive. You know what I mean? So
I love it. Love what you've accomplished. And I love the difference you made for so many people. Jerome Grant, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Brought to you by the new book, Spark, 24 Concepts to Supercharge Your Work Life. Learn more at sparkbook.com.